living in nice neighborhoods with ample community spaces and green spaces. But on the other hand, you also have one of the largest slums in the world where people are living in very high density without the required amount of facilities to them. It also puts a pressure on the natural systems, as you can see on the river on the left of your screen, which becomes polluted over time. But at the same time, cities, especially Asian cities, also offer opportunity and hope. And we can see this in many of the projects that have been done in several cities across Asia, as well as in Singapore itself, where a lot of the design projects, both in the building scale as well as the urban scale, have enabled Singapore to transform itself. And so it's not only the design, but it's also the policies that are implemented. And hence, the course focuses on design as well as the policies that are behind implementing sustainable, successful sustainable policies and designs in cities. The other important aspect of the curriculum is being multiscaler. So the projects that we undertake in the design studios range from building scale, and in the building scale also we have a diversity of the programs that are tackled. So it ranges from housing, both public and private, all the way to institutional projects of various scales and types, all the way down to educational, commercial, and healthcare projects, and even high density, high-rise buildings, which are very typical to these Asian cities. So the diversity of scale and programs is essential. And it jumps from the building scale all the way to the city scale. And as you can see in this map, we study various networks within a city. And within these networks, we identify typological studies, which can be implemented from a small scale to the whole network, and test it out at the district scale. If many of these interventions are applied to a district, how would that impact the network and the city? And we also take a look at infrastructure projects like megaports and airports, and how the question of sustainability could be implemented and see the impact of these interventions to the larger scale at the larger scale of the city. The other very important part of this program is a systems thinking approach to both to the whole curriculum, especially to the projects. Now, why is this important? First of all, in this ISD program, we look at projects, whether it's a building or whether it's an urban district or whether it's a city, not in isolation, but as part of a larger whole. So a building in conventional design tends to be a very, designers or engineers tend to look at it a bit more intrinsically, introvertedly at what's happening in the building. But it's important to understand that a building or a project is not in isolation, but is part of a larger network, whether it's being part of a water and energy grid, or whether it's part of a network of green spaces and public spaces. So that's why systems thinking is very important to our discourse, and how, looking at the project, we understand how the project is embedded to the system and how we design so that we improve, have a positive impact on systems. At the same time, we look at the systems together. It's, for example, if we only look at the water system, yes, we can have an efficiently designed water system, but in doing so, we may not be able to maximize or optimize the impact or the opportunities in the other systems like energy, green system, public space system, food production system. So it's the projects that we do are always a way of understanding each system, designing, calculating, maximizing the potential, but at the same time, balancing across the 5 systems. So the final project is an integrated whole where it's a functional design, but it's also performing in terms of all the other systems. And this is replicated at the urban scale. So this is a project done in one of the recent studios where we designed one of the districts in Singapore. And on the right hand, you can see that again, all the various layers as different systems are analyzed. they feed into the design, and we understand the calculations and the performances. And this is important, and why the program is multidisciplinary, because designers, planners, and engineers, they work in tandem to understand what's the best outcome of a design. So every action, design decision is not just from a designer's point of view, but it's also informed by the engineers who are working together to create a synergy, much like how it happens in the industry, where real projects are done within an ecosystem of several disciplines. And a successful project is one which is able to marry all these disciplines together. So that brings us to the projects. The projects are at the heart of the ISD program, and it happens in studios where there is constant discussions, both with the members of the faculty, with industry experts who frequently come to the studio, as well as amongst the students themselves, because everyone comes from a diverse background, from a diverse academic knowledge with professional experience many times, and hence they're able to share and inform the design to work as groups, which results in a unified whole. The studios are also supported by several site visits. So we do go and visit, and we take the advantage of being located in Singapore to go and visit some of the landmark projects which have been able to drive the agenda of sustainability to a larger extent compared to conventional buildings. So the studio and the projects are an integral part of the program. And like I said before, the program is multidisciplinary, and we ensure that people coming from various disciplines are able to find their comfort and able to find the niche through the projects that are done. So if for one project, there could be different streams or different parallel ways of approaching a project, and we do this based on the discipline of the students that are coming into. So while architects will look at the building and urban design scale of the project, planners, landscape planners are looking at the larger scale of the urban district, neighborhood, and the city scale. So the projects always jump between buildings and the urban, and we are constantly looking at how an intervention at a building scale will have an impact on the city, and how planning the city needs to correspond to the design of the building. Now, all these decisions, like I said, have to be supported by performance and qualitative analysis of the performance, because to achieve true sustainability, it's important that we achieve results and outcomes. And that's where the the students who are coming from an engineer background are critical part of this ecosystem. And even more important is that whatever we are exploring in the studio as design decisions, how can it impact the real world? It can impact the real world if we are able to influence policies. And hence, we also have students from a non-design background, but with strong background in analytical studies and policy studies, who take a look at the existing policies of the cities and nations, and together working with the designers, try to see how the existing policies perform and what needs to change in the existing policies, so that countries and cities are able to drive the boundary, the performance of buildings and cities. So in doing so, we are able to nurture the skill set of the students itself. We offer a cross-disciplinary approach, and the most important thing is we are trying to develop a critical thinking and analytical temperament to the students through these projects. Now, I'll just give snippets of examples of the works done by different students from different backgrounds. So I've already shared with you these two visuals, which largely depict the outcomes of the work done by architects or planners, but supported by the people with the engineering background. But the engineers themselves have to also work on the performance matrix. And here is an example of a study we did, where we are trying to analyze, like, what is the optimum area within a site that the development needs to dedicate, whether it's on the site or on the top of a building or on various surfaces of the building, to achieve enough production of renewable energy that it becomes a net positive or at least a net zero building. So our students were able to come up with certain rules, and we have tested the rules, and we do it for different typologies of buildings. So again, jumping the scale from the building, we try to take these rules and apply it to the larger scale. And we see here that the red line depicts the energy demand for Singapore. And the green line depicts how, if these rules are applied at various scales to the buildings, how we can close the gap between energy demand and renewable energy production. And we apply it to the Singapore scale, as you see on the map on the right-hand side, and test whether at what point and through what design interventions can this gap be closed. So calculations is an important part of this curriculum. And again, we do this for water. So here we tested how, if a building is designed to be very efficient in water and treats its water, what happens if all buildings in Singapore are done the same way? And we come up with the numbers and to see the impact that it can have on the city scale. We are cognizant of the fact that design alone is not enough. We need policies, but we also need economics. Because in a real world, every project decision will be driven by capital investment, the cost. And that's why we have been liaising with the NUS School of Business, where our students, the work done by the students in the ISD program are worked upon jointly with the students of the School of Business, and they are able to analyze it from an economic point of view to see that the investment required to achieve the design propositions that we are proposing as to improve sustainability. So what's the cost of that, and what's the impact? Is it beneficial to the individual stakeholders? Is it beneficial economically to the government? So that's what we have been doing, and this is something that we want to take even further in collaboration with the NUS School of Business. Now, we also have industry experts who come and assist in the studio in the program, and they are able to introduce various tools to the students to measure performances. So this is a tool which measures ecosystem services. So using these tools, students are able to check what's the performance of the design in terms of various ecosystem metrics like air temperature, water quantity, carbon uptake. And again, here we try to see different scenarios, with carbon being an important part of the discussion of climate change, whether it's beneficial from a carbon point of view to redesign a building, which means to tear and build a new one, or whether it's more efficient from a carbon point of view to retrofit a building and improve performance without tearing down through design. So it goes into the design thinking, the calculations that designers and engineers in the studio are doing. So we keep introducing these various parameters to enable the students to make more informed decisions. And finally, policy. So the students who work on the policy aspect of the projects, they look at the policies that are already implemented. So if the projects that we are looking at are in the Singapore, in the context of Singapore, we look at what are the existing policies that the government has, what are the targets that the government has in light of the climate change action plans that have been done. So for example, in Singapore's context is the Singapore Green Plan. And then understand international benchmarks, because different cities could be doing things differently, some to a better extent. So it's important to benchmark against global examples. And then we interpret what is the impact of these policies, again, at the scale of buildings and at the scale of the urban neighborhoods. So even at policies, we are looking at both scales. And this is, again, important and consistent across the curriculum. And then finally, they are able to propose what changes can happen to the existing policies or what new policies need to be brought in that will help to make these kind of design decisions into reality. and then these are proposed against current policies versus the new policies that the students have proposed. And they share this at the final presentations, and we now usually have people from different backgrounds coming to these final presentations, including people from the government sector who are able to appreciate the work done by the students, give their feedback, and so there is a constant dialogue between what the work done by the studio as well as the actual government agencies who are implementing these policies on the ground. So that constant dialogue is established and sustained. And finally, the work that we are doing in the studio is important and essential to the global context. We all know climate change is important, and various institutions are coming up with policies that need to be implemented to really affect actual change for us to mitigate the impact of climate change. So the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are an important part of it. And the work done in the ISD studio is aligned to 11 of the 17 SDG goals that United Nations has put forth. Even at the local scale, many of the policies that the government is looking at, the Singapore Green Plan, the SG 30 by 30, which is targeted to improve the food sufficiency of food production in Singapore, all the way to policies like City in Nature, which is targeting to improve the provision of natural and green infrastructure in Singapore. So the work done in the studio is really aligned to these national and international policies and goals. And that's why the modules that are taught in the studio are crafted in a way that all the various aspects are covered. So the project is the heart and soul of the program, but all the other modules and courses taught are done in a way that we address various scales, so urban scale, building scale, we address energy systems, clean energy, and we try to introduce various frameworks and ideas at the urban scale to the students. We are also in the process of introducing new courses to the curriculum, which we think are important to keep stretching the boundaries of this course. And urban food systems. Again, like I mentioned, Singapore is putting an important emphasis on urban food production to increase resilience and production, but it's not only restrained to Singapore. All global cities will feel the pressure of food production, as we already see in the aftermath of the pandemic, as well as the Ukraine war. So urban food production and how as designers and planners we can influence it is important, and hence we are introducing or in the process of introducing a new module. We are also working towards introducing a new module about policy and finance, like I touched before, as well as courses on water and hydrological systems. Now the program is headed by two directors. One is Professor Dr. Nirmal Krishnani. Dr. Nirmal has extensive experience, more than 20 years experience in the realm of sustainability. He has advised several landmark projects across Singapore as well as Asia, and he has also been advising on various policymaking bodies. So he's one of the directors. He has also authored several books, and he has written a lot of articles in a lot of papers and magazines. And you can visit our website and find more about him and the books he has written. They are an immense source of knowledge if you are interested in the field of design and sustainability. He's held in the program by Professor in Practice Wong Mansam. If you may have heard about the practice of WOHA in Singapore, they are a Singapore-based architectural firm with immense international reputation. They have won several national design awards as well as international design awards, and many of the buildings have won several accolades across the world. So Mansam also sits in several of the government policy making bodies, so they are able to bring in various aspects into the studio and the curriculum. Both directors are assisted by various teaching staff from the university and from the industry. So we have Prof. Heng Chai Kiang, who was the former dean of the School of Design and Environment, Professor Eddie Lau. He is a specialist in building performances and energy. Prof. Sweenal Samant, she's from UK, and she is an expert in the background in the field of architecture and design. Anuj, he's from the industry, and he brings a very unique impetus to the program. He's someone who is specially trained in biodiversity, ecosystems, and biomimicry. And myself, I have been an alumni of the program. I have worked in the industry after that for 8 years, and I'm now back in the program as a research associate, trying to go deeper into the aspects of design and sustainability. There are other guests from different parts of the industry supporting the program, and I'll flash the names on the screen. And the works of the program are captured in several publications, again, flashed on the screen, and you can see them on our website. I'll just give a brief about the works that I did after graduating from the ISD program, and how the teaching of ISD enabled me in my work after ISD in the industry. So one of the projects we did was a vertical fish farm, a very unique project. And I was able to bring in the systems approach to a very conventional way of designing fish farms, which are very resource intensive. So the systems thinking enabled us to create unique ecosystems, which is based on a circular economy, and it helped us increase production, become resource efficient, and create a project which has again won several international accolades. I was also involved in a project which belongs to the NUS School of Design and Environment itself. It's the first new build net zero energy building in Singapore. And again, what we learned in the school through a cross-disciplinary approach, working with engineers, allowed me to work efficiently on this project. And this too has won several accolades across the world. I'll invite Celine, who is another graduate from the ISD program, to share a bit more.
Okay, thanks Alakash for the introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm quite excited to be here today to have a chat with you guys. Just to note, I think my sharing comes from a more personal note, and hope that you enjoy my own take on how I experienced the ISD program. So next, please. Let's start off with a bit of my personal background so that you can understand why I chose this course and why it's a very close part of my identity. Next. So firstly, as someone who's passionate about humanitarian design, it has led me to participate in several design and build projects overseas. Being an avid scuba diver, I also explored nature-based solutions in a coastal site for my design project back when I was completing my bachelor's in architecture. And lastly, then I wondered, how could I become a strong advocate in my career as someone who loves everything about nature? So this made me take a pause to explore whether the next obvious step to complete a master's in architecture was suitable for me. And I took a gap year out. Yeah, and I delved into architectural practice to build my depth in industry knowledge, but I also attempted to expand in fields that I could draw such relations to. And after that gap year, I decided that maybe perhaps the ISD program will be a better fit for me. And coming into it, I was expecting to become more qualified and confident in offering expertise in sustainable design rather than just architecture alone. So when I started my course in 2020 amidst the COVID pandemic, it gave me a really good perspective to study sustainable master planning along with other batchmates from different cultures who had the same motivation as me towards sustainability. And going into detail, I felt that the best takeaway from the course was being trained to use systems thinking, which what Alakash had already mentioned before. So I will not like drag on too long about it, but I find that even working in practice right now, that it's a very powerful approach to understanding the pain points in a city and how to remedy it through multiscaler design solutions. And then bringing it forward to after graduating, where I first worked for one of the ISD professors that Alakash also mentioned before, Dr. Anush Jain, who is a director of an ecological design consultancy called BioC. There, I built my foundation using the science of ecology and combining it with systems thinking to advise on design decisions made in building projects. So you can see here, this is the approach that we take based on evidence that we collect on site, and then trying to understand how we can knit and weave better into the blue and green systems to conserve certain ecosystems and to boost biodiversity as an outcome of the build project. And so armed with this scientific foundation, I then carried on to further detail it out as a landscape designer in Rainbow Studio Dreisaitl, which is a landscape architecture firm that champions sustainability through decarbonization, resource circularity, biodiversity, and inclusion, which I feel is very much bolstered by my previous experience in ISD. And coming into this firm, I already have the confidence and the knowledge to sort of implement all these things in my real and build projects. So here, I'm encouraged by my senior colleagues also to utilize systems thinkings and science-based approaches to sustainable design. For example, such as creating wildlife habitats for fauna, not only to survive, but also to thrive as well. So that will mean that not just providing the right amount of shelter or food, but also placing it in a way that is in good relation to the overall context of the site. And apart from just wildlife, it's also about understanding the context of a site in the city system of parks. So you can see on the right, it's actually a project pitch in Vietnam that I'm working on right now. And together with my colleagues, we identified the project as a valuable space to bring people of all demographic groups, especially those with special needs, to experience nature more closely. So this is again with that systems thinking approach of understanding what the site can offer more as a value add to the project. So to recap, after my architecture bachelor's, I was left at crossroads, wondering how I could achieve my best intentions through my career. Without a master's in architecture, would that stop me? Yeah, and I think that boils down to my own perspective on what I have found valuable in the ISD program. And even with another pathway, I think I still can achieve the same outcome and even open up more possibilities and opportunities for myself. And I hope that should you choose to pursue the ISD program, it will be the same for you too. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Celine. I'll welcome Han Zhao, who is another very fresh graduate from the program from China, to share quickly about this. I think we have a few minutes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Han Zhao.
Hi everyone. My name is Han Zhao. It is really an honor to share my wonderful experience in our ISD program. I obtained my bachelor degree at Southwest Jiaotong University in China. Before coming to NUS, I have been employed by Chengdu Institute of Planning and Design for over 3 years as an urban planner. It is a governmental planning agency. We are working to provide technique basis and technique support for our urban policies, or to guide the government to do something right. So we have to work with other economists, ecologists, architects, engineers, and other experts from different areas. So actually, that is exactly what our IST program is doing now. Students from different countries and different backgrounds working together in the same group for the same target. This is also the reason why I think this program is such a good fit for our urban planners or policymakers. In the IST program, I got the opportunity to learn how water or energy or food flow from production to consumption and to recycling. We also analyzed Singapore's existing policies and existing design guidelines of these 3 systems. So this process allows me to understand the current capacity and the gaps of this country, so that I could identify the potential where our design and planning can take part in and solve problems. In fact, I have to say this process is really fascinating. Imagine that you are starting in a totally new city, which is known as the classic case of urban planning. So what would be the most important thing you would want to get out of it? My answer is the insight and the reflection. The insight is about how this city becomes so excellent, while the reflection is about what else is lacking in it. So in the past 1 year, I have not only learned about what makes Singapore great, but also consider the struggles of today. More importantly, I also got a chance to face and solve them. So for our 3 target system, our solution idea is to make every building a producer and make every district self-sufficient through an integrated method, but how to make it? So fortunately, over the past 10 years, the works of our ISD studio are a continuum where the past projects are collected into a dataset. So this dataset provides insight into how different designers approach the same problem. So last year, my classmates and I were so lucky to be allowed to review and analyze this dataset in order to extract the rules on design and production, as well as the design guidelines based on these rules. So standing on the shoulders of these projects, we managed to build a quantitative relationship between building production and the construction index, such as the land use, the plot ratio, or the site area. That is to say, if we have a clear idea of the land use, of the plot ratio, and site area of one building, we could be able to estimate the food and energy production of this building. In addition, we also develop design guidelines for each system to guide the buildings to maximize their production when they are designed. We have also taken Jurong Lake District in Singapore as a test bed to check our rules and guidelines. Personally, I benefited a lot from this working way, from guessing to verification to summarizing and to application. Currently, I am continuing to work on this project as a student researcher, even though I have graduated. We are working towards creating rules which could be fit into GIS model. With these models, we are able to predict that if all buildings were designed to be generous, to be regenerative, what the productivity capacity of buildings, districts, and the whole city would be. At the same time, we are still trying to further refine the rules with the qualitative method, taking many realistic limitations and features into account. We are also working with Singapore Urban Redevelopment Authority with the target of extending our rules to the whole Singapore. We plan to join our GIS model into Singapore master plan. In this way, we hope to see Singapore's potential productivity and evaluate the cost at master plan level. So I will soon return to my previous institute and continue my work. I have to say, this year at NUS in the ISD program has been the most rewarding period of my life. I will take what I have learned back to Chengdu and continue building it. I am sure it would be very constructive. Finally, welcome to ISD. Welcome to Chengdu. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Zhao and Salim. We have just a few limited minutes left. I will open up to any question and answers from the audience. And even if we don't cover it within this time, you can always email us. I'm showing the email address that you can email to for any queries you may have regarding the program, admissions and all. You can also find this information on our website, as well as my contact details on the website. Okay, if there is no question, maybe I'll just, since we have a few minutes left, maybe I'll just ask Celine. It's a wonderful sharing even that you had, Celine, and to know your experience from your personal lives to how you took it into your academics and your practice. So, and you mentioned about the systems thinking approach that you're able to see in a project. Maybe you can just tell a bit about the multidisciplinary approach also, because working in the industry, you do have to liaise with people from various disciplines. So how's that like, and how, like for me, while working in ISD, I was introduced to the way engineers thought and the design and using the terms, and that helped me understand better in the industry what they are saying and how I can better assimilate and integrate their requirements in the projects. So I'm wondering if something is similar at your end.
Right. I think, yeah, like similarly, I agree with what you went through is also what I also experienced myself. Maybe also to add on about urban planning, because I never had experience with urban planners before. So in my first semester, when I was thrown into a group work with a very experienced urban planner, it was very insightful and quite refreshing to see how he approached master planning and sustainability from his big picture thinking. So I actually had a lot to learn from him, and I think even the way I approach projects today also, there's a bit of that influence that having that honor and opportunity to work with people from different disciplines has taught me as well. Yeah, so I think it's overall a very humbling experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking at the chat window and I have two questions which I'll quickly answer. The first is how to proceed for admission. So this program takes there are two intakes to the program. One is in the semester which begins in August, and the other intake is for the semester which begins in January. And we open admissions for both the semesters. You can look at the NUS website to find out more about this, even the ISD website to find out more. Currently, we have already finalized the admission for this August semester, and classes will be starting soon. And in July, we will be opening the admission for the January semester. So the January 2023 intake admission process will open in a couple of weeks. So again, keep looking at our website and to apply. Or if you have any trouble, you can always email me to answer that. The other question is regarding whether computing of systems performance will be taught through the curriculum in this program. Now, in this program, we don't actually go to teach simulations, if that's what you intend, because we always find that simulations, daylight simulations, energy simulations are very detailed requirements that are done and downstream of a project where you are just testing whether the building is performing or not. What we see is the upfront decisions that need to be made. And we do teach ways to calculate performance, which are important to make decisions in the front of the design, which are the very important decisions. So and that's why we are able to teach ways to calculate amongst various systems. And we are always trying to bring in new calculation methodologies and new systems. So for example, in the past 1 year, we are able to bring in the calculations regarding carbon to the discussion. And before that, we have been talking about energy, water, and all of that to this discussion. So yes, we do teach computing performance of systems, but we don't teach the detailed simulations that you may see using softwares and all. Okay. If there is no more questions, we can end the session so that it gives you time to refresh, and we'll welcome you back to the next session, which starts at 5 p.m. And I think you'll see on the website that some of the other programs, graduate programs from the College of Design and Engineering will be sharing at 5 p.m. So we welcome you for that session. And if there's no more questions to this session, I thank everyone for taking time to listen to us sharing about this program. I also thank Celine and Hanzao. You are working in the office and you managed to squeeze some time to share your experiences with some of our future students, hopefully. So thanks everyone again.
Thanks, Alakesh.
Thanks, Celine.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Hanzao.
Yeah.